Hi, this is David Fury, the writer of Helpless. Helpless was my very first Buffy script that I wrote by myself. I'd previously written an episode, Go Fish, with my wife, Ellen Hampton. But she went off to write for Mad About You, and I came to write for Buffy. And this opening segment involves a picnic, which was my idea, since I wanted Buffy to stake Angel with a big French bread. That was my big contribution to the opening sequence. It was also the first time I got to write for Buffy and Angel, specifically a scene, since in Go Fish, Angel had a very, very brief scene when he was bad. This, I think, is the first episode where Buffy and Angel are really dealing with the fact that they cannot consummate their relationship anymore, and about how difficult that's going to be. It sort of signals in some ways, the beginning of the end of Buffy and Angel's relationship, the beginning of all the strain that will play out throughout the season. That's where Buffy's talking about her date to go to an ice show, her birthday, that she does with her father. We invented this tradition that she goes to an ice show. Since it was previously established, she was a figure skater. I remember going on the internet for when I was writing this scene to learn about stones and crystals, things mystic. It's interesting. Most of the things we do here we make up. And since this was my first solo script, I had to learn a little bit about some props of the occult. And while some of these things are made up, some are I actually got from real occult websites. The little phallic thing going on, which I believe was a director's choice. And that's the mesmerizing crystal, which puts Buffy under, which I had imagined to be a very small crystal. I didn't imagine it to be the size of a large building. That's the playground, which also, for those of you who don't know, is also the cemetery. They redressed the Sunnydale graveyard to be and put a few swing sets and things. And that becomes our playground. It's a very small lot size, and we do a lot with it. Part of the inspiration for this scene was actually from I just seen Saving Private Ryan, and the scene where I think Adam Goldberg is stabbed by a soldier, a German soldier. It was one of the most disturbing scenes I'd ever seen. It was the intimacy of it, the shushing while the murder was taking place, and that sort of inspired the idea of a vampire using a stake against Buffy. And talking to her intimately. This is also the first of many of my episodes directed by Jim Contner, and I haven't worked with him yet this season, so I kind of missed that because he's one of the best directors we have here. I was a freelance writer throughout the third season of Buffy, and Go Fish was a story I had come in with, and Helpless, which was originally titled 18, since it deals with Buffy's 18th birthday. The premise is the same as the one I pitched. A lot of the specifics changed due to other episodes that they were developing at the time, and there was some bleed from that. Specifically, it was the general idea was that Buffy is put through a test, unbeknownst to her, by the Watchers Council, and that Giles is involved with it. And then it culminates with Giles firing. Although in my original story pitch, Giles firing comes at the end of Act 2. But I think Joss and David Greenwald were intrigued by the notion of Giles getting fired and decided to make that an arc of the series and leave it for the end of the episode. But the premise is essentially the same. Although in my original version, the test involved her friends becoming vampires, or at least she hallucinates that her friends and family, her mother, have become demons. and that she is all alone, and it's all because she's being drugged by the Watchers Council. And that changed when the episode The Wish came up, which involved the alternate reality Sunnydale if Buffy had not come, and we see Willow and Xander as vampires. So we couldn't do that, and it was Joss and David's idea to come up with the idea of a particular vampire foe that she has to face. Her test is that her powers are taken away, and she has to face this foe, who we'll meet shortly. Seth Green, who we miss, or I miss, in the 5th season. It was fun writing for us. He was a great character. And more exposition about Buffy's birthday plans. Show, which really becomes symbolic of her relationship with her father figure, in this case Giles, since she always went to with her father to the ice show, and so when her father cannot attend, which we'll see shortly, and will devastate her, she will go to Giles, her real father figure on the show, and ask if he'll take her, but he's oblivious to it since he's consumed with executing the test, which I call the cruciamentum. I'm not sure what it means anymore. One of those things I looked up on the internet, Latin, just going, I think it's test of torment or something. The Tento de Cruciamentum, I think, is the full name. Here's Buffy getting her heart broken once again. We don't see that very often on this show. And Christine Sutherland as Joyce. Always nice to write for Joyce. She kind of grounds the show in what it is, a young girl and her mother. It's kind of the family thing needs to ground it. If it was just Buffy and her friends, it wouldn't quite have the same resonance. And here is the big, scary house that we meet the Watchers Council, and or members of the Watchers Council. There's Harris Yulin, great character actor. We were lucky to get to play Quentin Travers. I'll talk a lot about the names I come up with, since sometimes names on the show it's tricky. You're always trying to find what sounds right, and I think Quentin Travers was inspired. I think Quentin Crisp and is it Mary Travers or Travers? I can't remember her first name. The woman who wrote Mary Poppins. P.J. Travers. Can't remember. Anyway, you try to find different things that evoke a certain. I guess I was looking to evoke very British. And in the box we just saw was the vampire foe that Buffy will face. And they had devised, they as in Joss and David, had imagined a Hannibal Lecter-ish kind of vampire, a psychotic vampire, one who was psychotic before he became a vampire. And in trying to come up with his name, a Hannibal Lecter-like name, I wound up settling for the name of my my then 4-year-old nephew, who had just had a great name, Zachary Kralik. I just thought it's got all the K sounds you want in a villain's name. You'll find a lot in my scripts in particular, but I think in general we often wind up with G's and K's for our demons. I just wind up gravitating to them all the time. And there's Buffy put under by the mesmerizing crystal. And Giles, the father figure, betraying Buffy. Portraying his daughter. That was the big thing about it. That was the thing that sold them on the episode, I believe, in doing this story, was the idea of someone that close to you doing something so heinous as drugging you. Because he's following his own agenda. He has to follow orders. That's when you're growing up and you realize your parents work for other people. There's a boss that they have to answer to. That's sometimes a big deal, where you think your parents the be-all, end-all, and you see them how they react and how they relate to an employer. In this case, Giles and the council. It's sometimes very unnerving. Tony was very fond of this episode. I know he was very nice to me when I came down. He was very happy to have this weighty, emotional episode centered around he and Buffy. Too often, Giles is delivering exposition and getting knocked out by a demon or a vampire. And in this particular case, he gets to have some great scenes I was very proud of. I hear the girls talking about Amy. It's one of the things about the show is you sometimes try to juggle a lot of plot developments or things that happen at the ends of episodes. You try to keep alive. In this case, Amy, the witch, was turned into a rat, or turned herself into a rat, and is stuck that way. And that was her way of just kind of keeping her alive, reminding us that that's going on. And hopefully someday we'll de-rat Amy for good. Poor Amy has been stuck as a rat for 2 seasons, and we always talk about finding a place for her, bringing her back, but sometimes it always, the stories just go away from it, and Amy remains stuck. One of the fun things about writing this episode, or interesting things I should say, is Buffy being, well, as the title says, helpless, is seeing Buffy, seeing our superhero be genuinely weak and afraid. Later when she's confronted with the big bad vampire Zachary Kralik on the street, that was one thing when I wrote, I know Joss particularly took to, Buffy screaming for help, screaming, "Please, God, somebody help me." And it was just something we hadn't seen from Buffy before. Giles having second thoughts. The house, in my mind, when I was writing this, was much bigger. This house was just fine, but as I was writing it, I had to picture a complete house, a set, since so many rooms are used in it. Very often, with different scenes or set pieces, it's just a single room or 2 rooms. Here we basically had to design an entire house, and the house in my head was much bigger. This one was just fine. This one, I was probably thinking in movie terms what the house would look like, and in fact, we're on a TV budget, of course, and it just all needed to be simplified. But I think it's effectively creepy. Harris actually appears in an episode in season 5. We were able to bring him back, finally. I've been pitching to Watchers Council stories ever since Giles was fired, that there may be other things to explore with them since they became disenfranchised with Buffy and Giles. And in fact, we finally got around to it here in 5 and brought back Harris, sporting a goatee, as a matter of fact, which we didn't quite see for Quentin Travers, but we weren't about to tell Mr. Yulin to shave it. We were so happy to have him back. Cobra. Zachary Kralik. I love saying Zachary Kralik. I think of him as scary, even though it's my little nephew. Now all of 6. And the pills, yes, this became a big plot point. This was, I believe, Joss's idea. That he needs these pills to control headaches, which lead to him needing to drink water to take the pills, which lead to Buffy figuring out how she's going to kill him. Clever way Buffy kills him, which I think some people were disappointed with, but because It's holy water, which we'll see later. She tricks him into drinking holy water, and that kills him. And I thought pretty clever. Some people just thought holy water, that doesn't do anything. Can't kill a vampire with just holy water. But
oh no, wait.
I don't think we've ever seen a vampire drink holy. I didn't have a problem with it. Took another bit of research. The Superman run, the Kryptonite run.
Kryptonite kills.
I had vague memory when I came up with this run. I knew about the different kryptonites, but I could not keep them straight. So I had to basically make it up. I'm not even sure if I'm correct in my comic book lore of which kryptonite does what, which takes away powers, which mutates Superman, and so making an argument between Xander and Oz kind of saved me the trouble of actually finding out what it is. The fact that one of them's probably right, it was enough to get by with. And that was just, I had a good time writing that. It's true in this show. Many of the people, particularly Joss, are big comic book aficionados, and as much as I enjoy a good comic book once in a while, I'm not. So I have to be very careful sometimes about my comic book references, about getting certain things straight. This was intended to be a little. I was hoping this would play more as two parents with a crying baby, and about taking turns taking. It's your turn to take care of the baby. I've been. I need to get my sleep. I don't know if it played that way at all. I'm not sure it did. But that was the intent. I was hoping that would be a little bit funnier. But, I'll always take scary over funny. One little thing about if Cobra is great in this. His performance is terrific. But one little slight thing, I wish they had cut his hair. I wanted to, because I imagined Zachary Kralik having been an institutionalized psychotic. I wanted him to have a buzz cut, kind of one of those shaved buzz cuts, at least along the sides or something that made him look institutionalized. And Jeff has this great big shock of hair, a mop top basically, and so it doesn't quite read. He's in his little jumpsuit that's supposed to be an institutional uniform, but he doesn't quite read a psychotic. I mean, he reads like a psychotic vampire, but not like somebody who was a serial killer put in jail, or put in a mental institution, I should say. This is a lovely scene, which I didn't write. I wrote a version of it, and I think my only contribution to the scene is the book as the present and the inscription always.
Thank you.
From Angel. It just seemed short, simple, and meaningful, just the one word. And I think that's the only thing that remains of my original script. Because frankly, it's very hard. These are the hardest scenes for me to write, between Angel and Buffy, the more emotional, the love scenes. I come from a comedy background, so I'm always looking for a spin on it that sometimes takes away the genuine emotion that is needed in a show like Buffy. That's what makes Buffy so great, and what makes Joss so brilliant, and Marty Knox and other writers, is being able to get the emotional truth out of these scenes. And I did my best, and I don't remember exactly what I had originally, but I'm sure this is better.
What if I just hide under my bed all scared and helpless?
Still, it was fun to attempt it. I was a fan of the show before I became a writer here, and so I've sat and cried during some Buffy and Angel interactions, and being given the chance to write one was a great, wonderful challenge. And I think I became a better writer for it, even if they didn't use any of my words. There's a very funny run, I think, of that Joss wrote of Angel having seen Buffy before when he first saw her, And it relates to the flashback scene we'd seen earlier in the season of when Angel first saw Buffy before they met, and he saw her on the steps of the high school, and she was holding her heart out in her hands, and it's this lovely scene that, in typical Joss fashion, he undercuts by Buffy saying that's so beautiful, or incredibly gross if you take that literally. That's the best way to do it. If you can really nail the emotional truth and then undercut it, that's always a winning thing. I think the most meaningful scene I wrote in this episode, at least for me, and it was when I went to see shot. It was, I think, one of the few scenes I actually got to watch them shoot that mattered, was the scene between Buffy and Giles. Later, when she learns the truth of Giles' betrayal of her. And that scene stayed virtually intact, or mostly intact, and that I was very proud of, because, again, it was not the kind of scene I was used to writing. When I wrote Go Fish, I think we were given about 8 days to write, and Ellen and I had not written a half-hour script in less than 2 weeks at that point. So to write our first 1 hour in 8 days was pretty incredible. Then for me to do this episode, Helpless, I think I was given maybe 9 days, 9 or 10 days, and this was as a solo writer, so I didn't have a partner helping me on it. That seemed incredibly short, yet working through nights, I managed it. In fact, these days, our turnaround is probably 5 days for a script. So it's gotten shorter as the years have gone on, and I guess as the confidence level is raised on the writers, we're given much shorter time periods to turn scripts around. We're just barely getting them in before shooting days. And it's not the ideal way to work, granted. And now I'm thinking a 8 or 9 day deadline is a luxury, and I wish for those days again. But we somehow managed to do it. 4 or 5 days. It's pretty miraculous. I work with very, very talented people. When I wrote this scene, I remember it was very creepy and a little more gory. I'd imagined, I think when Giles turns, he's going to touch the banister there, yes, and he has blood on it. It's blood on it. And then I imagined, and then there's a little bit of a bloody trail. When he enters the room, I'm not sure if we see the blood. Do we see the bloody trail? I'm not sure we do. Yes, he gets the stake. I remember that. I got that. Yes, we don't see a bloody trail. Oh, wait a minute. We do. Forget it. It's been so long since I've seen this. Yes, this is as I've written. Yeah, there's the bloody trail. Okay, when he opens the door to the side room, I imagine blood everywhere. I imagine the walls were caked with blood. It's going to be horrific. And as you can see, nothing on the walls. There's a tiny bit of something, and one little arm. And I could have imagined there was a horrible thing had taken place in there. But of course, it's television. It's a lot of kids watch, and we couldn't go that far with it. Now, this is interesting thing that was I had put in the script, or not directly put in the script, but I wanted to give the impression of a sort of a Little Red Riding Hood sort of thing. And in fact, I don't know if Joss had directed this. Or directed the costume department to put Buffy in this red coat. It was all subtextual when I wrote it. It wasn't literal, but I had her walking home and confronted by the big bad wolf. And in fact, as you'll see, Kralik will don Buffy's coat much the same way as the wolf puts on the grandmother's clothes, and I just thought it was fascinating that the costume department either picked up on that in the script, or Joss had picked up on it and directed them. But putting her in that red hooded coat was I think very clever of them. And this is the scene, as I said, when I wrote it, Joss was just loved a terrified Buffy, that Buffy had become the girl, the heroine of a slasher movie or a horror movie who is running screaming from the monster, and is in no way resourceful, can't cope, can't think, and is just looking for someone to help her. And he loved being able to put her in that position. This Giles Citron, which we smashed up, no longer drives that. I gave him in a script in the 5th season, Real Me. It was my decision to put him in a sporty red convertible. I just thought it was time. At the time Giles had a nice car, and it seemed to fit his midlife crisis for him to get a car like that. This is the scene, as I said, I was proud of. I think it's very well played by both Tony and Sarah. And I think Jim Conner did a great job directing it. Yeah, Sarah's great in this. There was a bit cut out of him explaining the mesmerizing crystal, which I'm sorry to lose, since I had to work out the logistics of how does he actually do this. He puts her under a spell. She falls under in a stupor, and then he injects her with the thing that takes away her power. I thought I constructed that well, but we lost a little bit of that. I think it's all pretty self-explanatory, I guess. That's what he decided in the editing room. Now, I actually wanted him to turn to face her when Buffy throws the box with the hypodermic at him, and he actually ducks. It looks like he got hit with it a little bit. I think but I think that the pacing of this episode is something that's been mentioned. It could have moved more quickly, but I actually like it like this. Touch me, I'll kill you. I actually like that they take their time. The fans' reaction to this, I think to some extent the fans responded favorably, but it's always tricky when you're doing something that kind of breaks up, puts tension among the Scooby Gang or among Buffy and the people she cares about. The fans often respond negatively to it because they don't want to see that. They always want to see, the happy campers fighting the big bad evil. And the show just couldn't continue being that. It needed to bring tension and conflict into their relationships, which we definitely expanded on in the 4th season when they went off to college. But I think I know that there was some response to the idea that the episode was almost great. I think that's what I've heard about it. They say, it was almost great, but it's not quite. And I don't know exactly what that means, except perhaps, it didn't have the core gang being the superheroes people like to see. There's a scene I was talking about where Kralik is wearing the red coat in that Little Red Riding Hood fashion, and he turns to Joyce and says, "Mother." That was also my invention, him saying "mother," and that also led to a not original idea, granted, of the psychotic killer having a mother fixation, but it did give us some clues as to how to play a lot of the scenes as he's tormenting Joyce and giving the backstory about his own relationship with his mother. But it was still fun. I got to write the line of that, you know, my mother's dead to me now, mostly because I killed and ate her. And there's the holy water, which she's not supposed to know she can use holy water yet. We had to, of course, show that she's grabbing it, I suppose, so that we can pay it off. But it did seem kind of planted there that Buffy, who normally grabs all the big stakes and crossbows, grabs holy water this time.
10 years old.
But, you know, you have to plant these things for them to pay off. The Polaroids, I think, was my idea.
But she's dead to me now.
Taking loads and loads of Polaroids of her and his tormenting Joyce. A lot of these other mother things were written by Joss.
I won't kill her.
He certainly loves to write the mother metaphor things. We explored it also in season 4 with Professor Walsh. It was certainly a mother figure, and they're always fun to allude to the sick, twisted mother-son relationships. The show, I think, Joss would say, is first and foremost it has more in common with a show like My So-Called Life than it does with, I don't know, Dark Shadows or some other genre piece. What the show is able to do with arcing its relationships and its teen angst issues, we're able to explore it more with ongoing stories as opposed to doing standalone episodes entirely. The more the series has gone on, the more we've kept an ongoing soap opera-like quality, continuing the through line which we set up in an episode. We tend to let that carry us through to the end of the season, sometimes beyond. And it's interesting how it affects our story choices later. We don't know how one character is going to feel about another 4 episodes, 5 episodes down the line, and it could affect everything. If we have an idea for something later in the season, if 2 characters are now antagonists, or if 2 characters are now romantically linked, it changes everything. But that's the beauty of the show. It becomes one big unfolding novel. I had wanted the Harris Yulin character, Quentin Travers, to play as a father figure to Giles. It kind of fell away by the time this draft was done. I think in the original story Inception, I thought maybe we'd get some backstory between them, that Travers was a mentor figure to Giles. But honestly, it didn't interest Joss. He said, we don't really care about Quentin Travers, we really care only about the relationship between Giles and Buffy, and he's absolutely right. But I thought there was something to play with a grandfather character, and how these things are passed down. And I thought there was an interesting thing to play there, but again, there's very little room for that kind of thing. If Travers was a regular character, I'm sure we could have explored that metaphor. But in the course of one episode, he is just the antagonist, the thing that drives Giles to betray everything he believes in, and to betray Buffy. again, the action is essentially as I scripted it, although I imagined, again, a much bigger house, much bigger staircase, yes, she pushes this on top, yeah, that was all in my script, my original script. But I think I had it was much more of a cat and mouse game that was played inside the house, which we just didn't have the time to do. It just, this is TV, as I say. And in 42 minutes or 44 minutes, we can't quite play that long a cat and mouse game, unfortunately. I also like the humming that Kralik does. I wanted him to hum in this house a little bit more. We didn't get to see that. I think that kind of fell away. But and again, possibly not the most original idea, but there's something very creepy being in a dark house and hearing humming echoing throughout it, and you don't know where it's coming from. Also, we had Kralik's desire to turn Buffy with something rather than just simply kill her. Oh, this is a great bit. This was Joss's idea. That he places the cross on his belly. And he gets a twisted pleasure from that, sexual pleasure from burning himself with crosses. That was brilliant. Here's the scary arm, bloody arm, in the kitchen. I believe when the show started, there were table reads at the beginning with the actors, but that fell away fairly early on, before I came onto the show. I know everybody's got the characters, and everybody is they nail it. There's no need for table reads anymore. It's if we're lucky, the actors get the scripts at least a few days before we start shooting. It goes from the way it generally works is we work on a story as a group, the group of writers, sometimes with Joss, sometimes without. We come up with what the act breaks are going to be. Then from that, we're able to form a beat sheet, which Joss will chime in on and tell us what's wrong with it and what we should do. And here's some great ideas. Here's all the photographs on the wall. That was my idea. And I'm sure it's not original. I'm sure it's somewhere else. I got it from something. Seems familiar to me, but I still thought it was kind of cool. But we get an outline. Whatever writer is assigned the script will take that beat sheet once it's approved and write an outline. That outline is then read by Joss, and he gives notes. Joss and Marty, or Joss. This particular year was Joss and David Greenwald would give the notes, and writer would go off and read. Writer would go off and write based on those notes, start the script. And then you turn in a draft within, as I say, within maybe a week or so. And hopefully you get another pass on it before Joss takes the last crack at it. And when Joss takes the last crack, it's generally just to clean up things. Just to punch up a few things and clean it up and put some things he wants more in his voice, the way he hears it. All right, so Buffy now knows about the pills of Kralik, and somehow here has put a glass of water there, and just knew he would get to it and drink it. Don't ask me how. Now, the effect we were looking for, I don't think we succeeded, was a sort of being eaten away from within. We've seen vampires get dusted from without, and we were looking for a whole different effect, but I'm not sure we succeeded. I think the only difference is we see maybe a little bit more skeleton than before, but the effect is really not decidedly different from, well, there's some smoking there in the middle, but it's not decidedly different from the usual dustings. And there was a little more banter There he goes. Yeah, little skeleton there. I guess it's a little bit different. There was a little more banter I had with Buffy, but or possibly less. But it was Buffy was going to be far more beaten up by the end of this. She was going to be a broken mess in the corner when he drank that, and crawling. But we didn't get that. It didn't get that far. But again, not decidedly different from Zachary Kralik. So to recap regarding the writing process, I would say that from story beat, when you get the beats of the story to script, you're really talking about a 2-week period on the show, which is extremely short, but we somehow manage under Joss's leadership. Here comes the big firing, a big deal, something. Again, something else I brought. The kind of neat thing was, I was a freelance writer, as I said, when I wrote this, was coming up with things that changed the course of the series. That was kind of neat. Go Fish was meant as kind of a standalone lark, is what I meant to say. Just a good fun throwback to 50s horror films, and it ends and we get on with the rest of the story. In this one, this was the first time something I wrote kind of affected the direction of the series. With Giles firing, it introduced the character of Wesley, who replaced Giles as Watcher, and eventually brought Wesley over to Angel. So kind of neat to be to think your little idea has changed the course of a series that you regularly watch and love.
Congratulations.
Well, there's a phrase you see on a lot of T-shirts of Buffy: "Bite me." I think that's the first time she said it. Now it's the headline anytime there's an article about Buffy. And then the subtle reconciliation. Giles taking the wash rag to dab her wounds. It's meant without words to convey that they're going to be okay. They're going to somehow get past this. But this episode did also set Giles on a course, a downward spiral that we played out through, gosh, a season and a half. Of being directionless and jobless and feeling that Buffy doesn't need him anymore. But in fact, that works as a metaphor for when your child is growing up and doesn't need you anymore. That's kind of what we were playing out. This was the beginning of it. These are scenes that I know the fans like a lot because they love to see the group together, just bantering and being friends and being pals. And Xander can't open the peanut butter jar. Anything we could do to make Xander look foolish and weak. No, we love Xander. Xander is the character I most relate to. I've said that in many interviews. Our leader, Joss Whedon. One of Jane Espenson, Doug Petrie. These are brilliant, brilliant people. Kelly Manners, who is now an Angel, the UPM on Angel. Well, this was great fun. I hope you enjoyed the episode. I'm proud of it. It's still one of my favorites of the dozen or so I've done at this point. And thanks for listening.